Hello and welcome back to Kausar Technologies. This is session 9 of Complete Library Management System using Java Swing and MySQL Database. In today's video, we are going to start Students Form. In Students Form, we have several operations, like how we can browse student image, how we can get the maximum ID from the student table, how we can load all the data from the faculty table into this combo box. That is so good. Here first we want to browse student image. For that, we want to close our application. And here we want to right click on that, event, and then mouse click event. Okay, the mouse click event is generated. Here first we want to define variables to store image path. Simple. String, for example, file name. And then we want to define another variable, boolean, for example, check image state. Okay, the check image state variable can be used whether the image is uploaded or not. If the image is uploaded, we want to assign value to true. If the image is not uploaded, we want to assign value to false. That is good. Hereafter, we want to create object of JFileChooser. Simple JFileChooser. JFileChooser. For example, file dialog equal JFileChooser, and here we have different overloaded version like file system view, string, file, and string. We want to use file system view, and here you can use file system view dot get file system view dot get home directory. Okay, here the get home directory method can be used to specify the default directory, home directory. So let's show the file dialog. Simple file dialog dot show dialog. We want to use this overloaded version, and for the parent component we want to pass null value. Okay, the show open file dialog method return integer value. We want to store in integer variable, and for example the result equal show open file dialog. Okay, hereafter we want to define a condition if result equal JFileChooser dot approve option. That means if the user selected file, we want to process that file. For that we want to get the selected file. Simple file, for example file equal file dialog dot get selected file. We want to use get selected file method. Okay, here we got an error. Cannot find the symbol. We want to import that package. So we selected the file. After that, we want to create image icon. For example, image. And here we want to pass the selected file, file.toString. So we selected the file. After selecting the file, we converted that file into image icon. Thereafter, we want to set that image icon into a label. Simple lbl image.set icon of that image. That's so good. Thereafter, we want to store file path in file name variable. File name equal, for example, file.get absolute path, and we want to assign check image state equal true. So hereafter we want to run the application. Let's run it. And here we want to open manage students. Let's click on the browse image. We want to select image from student image. Here we have folder. Okay, let's select that image. As you can see, the image is uploaded but not showing completely. For that we want to scale the image. Let's close the application, and here we want to use .get image method. Then we want to use get scaled instance. Here you can specify weight, height, and hints. For example, you want to specify 160 weight and 1et height, and we want to use, for example, image.scale smooth to get better quality. As you can see, we got an error. Incompatible types. Image cannot be converted to image icon. Let's convert it. For that, we want to use new image icon, and then we want to close the parentheses. The error is gone. Let's run the application. Let's open Manage Students. Here we want to browse the image, and here we want to find student image folder. As you can see, the image is displayed correctly. Thereafter, we want to load the maximum ID from the student table. That is good. Here first we want to import the required packages, and here we want to import, for example, import java.sql connection, and then import java.sql prepare statement, import java.sql for example SQL exception, and import java.sql result set. That is good. Thereafter, we want to define a simple method to get maximum ID from the database. For that, we want to use private void get max ID. Inside that, we want to read database connection from JDBC connection class. For that, we want to use try catch with resources. Let's define catch block. For example, SQL exception. Let's read the database connection from the JDBC connection class. Connection con equal JDBC connection.get database connection. So thereafter, we want to define a query to get maximum ID from the student table. For that, here first we want to define a variable string, for example, query equal empty. We want to write a query in MySQL workbench. Simple. Select if null, and here we want to use max function, and we want to pass student ID, and then we want to replace null value with 0, increment by 1 as max ID from table student. So let's execute that query. As you can see, we got max ID. Thereafter, we want to copy that query, and here we want to assign to that variable. So the query is ready. Hereafter, we want to use prepare statement is equal con.prepare statement, and here you can pass that query. So let's execute that query. For that, we want to use result set rs equal ps.execute query, and here the execute query method can be used to execute the select query. So after executing the query, we want to process the result set. For that, we want to define a condition if rs.next, then return rs.getInt of id. We have maxed id column, max id. And finally, we want to return fallback value. You can return any value, but we want to return 1. Okay, there is some problem. Incompatible types, unexpected return value, and here we have also this incompatible types, unexpected return value. Let's check that. Okay, here we used the void keyword. We want to return integer value. Okay, the error is gone. That is good. Hereafter, we want to call that method. For that, first here we want to use capital, and then we want to call the method inside constructor. Simple. Get max ID. We want to set maxed ID into txt student ID text box. Here we have txt student ID text box. Simple. Txt student ID dot set text. We want to call get max ID method. We want to concatenate string value. Let's save the changes, and then we want to run our project. As you can see, we got max ID, which is 1. That is because in the database, for now, we don't have any record. So thereafter, we want to load all faculty into this ComboBox, because here we have faculty table. In faculty table, we have several faculties like computer science, medicine, journalism, and educational. We want to load all the records into ComboBox. To get all the faculties, we want to define another method. For example, private hash map, and here you can specify key and value. You want to specify key string type and value integer type. For example, load faculty. Inside that, you want to read the database connection. For that, you want to use try catch with resources. Try, and then we want to use the catch block SQL exception. Let's read the database connection from the JDBC connection class. Simple connection con equal JDBC connection, JDBC connection dot get database connection. So let's define a query to get all the records from faculty table. String, for example, query equal select all from TBL faculty. Let's change this faculty. Okay. Hereafter, we want to define prepare statement. Prepare statement, for example, ps equal con dot prepare statement. Let's execute that query. Simple. Result set equal rs equal ps dot execute query method. You want to use execute query method because the query is select. One thing you remember, here in our project, we have utilities. In utilities, we have ComboBox item. Let's open that. The ComboBox item class is responsible to manage value member and display member. Because in the database, we want to store faculty ID, and for the user, we want to display faculty name. The ComboBox item class has a constructor and accept two value member, which is integer type, and display member, which is string type. And here we have simple getter and setter methods. To simplify this class is responsible to manage display member and value member. The display member, name of the faculty, for example, and the value member, ID of the faculty. Because in the database, you want to store ID of the faculty, but not name. For the user, we want to display name of the faculty. Let's check the database. For example, we want to select all the records from student table. Select all from TBL student. As you can see, here we don't have faculty name. Here we have faculty ID. We want to store faculty ID in the student table. That is so good. Let's switch back to the NetBeans, and here we want to open manage student form. For that, here we want to take a variable of ComboBox item, for example, ComboBox item. So hereafter, you want to process the result set. For that, you want to use while loop, while rs dot next. Let's create object from the ComboBox item. Simple. ComboBox item equal new ComboBox, and here you can pass value member and display member. You want to get rs.getInt, which is ID. You can specify column name or index. You want to use index, and value member rs.get string, for example 2. Okay, this is the value member which we want to store in the database, and this is the display member which is displayed in the ComboBox for the user. So hereafter, we want to add items to hash map. For that, we want to define hash map. Simple hash map. For example, string is the value and key is integer, and we want to name, for example, map equal. Let's add key and value here. For example, string and integer. Okay, we got an error, unexpected. Okay, Here we have extra parentheses. That is absolutely good. Thereafter, you want to add items to hash map one by one. For that, you want to use map.put method. Here you can specify key and value. We want to specify key CMBX item dot get display member, and we want to specify value CMBX item dot get value member. Here we specify display member. We want to specify value get value member. This is because in ComboBox item class we have, for example, get display member and get value member. We have two getter. The get value member return value member, and the get display member return display member. And finally, we want to return map. For that, we want to use simple return map. That is so good. Hereafter, we want to call method inside the constructor. And here we want to take a variable of hash map. Simple hash map. You want to specify key string and value integer. For example, map equal, we have a method load faculty. We want to call that method. Let's define a for each loop. For each, for example, string str. In our, for example, we have map dot key set. We want to get only the key because we want to display only the faculty name. Then we want to add item one by one into ComboBox CMBX faculty dot add item of str. Okay, let's change this into, for example, key for better practice. Let's run our application to see the result. As you can see, all the faculties loaded successfully from the database into ComboBox. In our next video session, we want to store student information with image in MySQL Database. That is enough for today. Have a good day. See you in the next one.